The U.S. Exchequer paper, published soon up a stroke of midnight last date, list each elder term of the policy authority at the Kremlin, and each Russki tycoon in a net cost of $1 trillion or more than. Several of such mentioned are already object to U.S. sanctions regime. But the authority stopped brief of formidable any new punishments, proverb the law was already making its work. The paper was no a sanctions regime listing, it told. Instead of, the Exchequer paper resembled an workout in calling and shaming, setting individuals on note how they may be object to sanctions regime in the next. The listing includes, Kremlin criticizes U.S. above listing address supporters in Moscow on Tuesday. Russki CEO Vladimir Putin told how, though he hadn't yet seen the listing, the steep quantity of top officials turned on it was equivalent to a U.S. conviction of the entire nation. Which's the spot of the I don't know, Putin told. Yet the is of year and hostile instrument. It complicates already complex Russia-US relations and harms world relations in general. Such who attract in the are mainly betrothed in their own national policy. They are hard to assault their selected CEO. Yet, he added how we include heard on several some open secret listing, comprising some names, so we requirement to see and see which is departure to occur. Alexei Chepa, vice president of the country Duma's World Sphere Board, outlined the produce of the listing as else move, that, apparently, leads to future rise of tensions, informed news story agent RIA newsletter. Konstantin Kosachev, president of the Overseas Sphere Board in the Federation Justice, the top building of the Russki parliament, told the U.S. had just copy out the Kremlin phone book in its attempts to show it had mud on Russki elites. Guideline industry figures in Moscow were informed to include been impatiently waiting the paper, duplicated the Putin listing. They afraid how, though if it did not levy future sanctions regime, it would include a scary impact on their business community. But critics of the Trump card authority in the U.S. were angry how it did not get the prospect to ratchet wheel up measures on Russia. Why was the listing published? The Trump card authority was required to issue the listing by the Counteraction America's Adversaries via Sanctions Regime Act, CAASTA, that was intended to penalize Russia for its intervention in the 2016 U.S. poll, as estimated human rights violations, the accession of Crimean Peninsula and continuing war operative in East Ukraine. Over Monday, the Trump card authority rejected to levy sanctions regime versus companies and overseas countries making industry in blocked Russki defense and intellect entities, a review required by CAASTA. Sanctions regime on particular entities or individuals will not requirement to be superimposed since the law is, in reality, serving as a constraining, a country division formal told. Country division representative Heath Nauert told the law had already deterred Russki defense turnover. With the adoption of the CAATSA law, we estimation how overseas governments include neglected plan or announced purchases of few $1 trillion in Russki defense acquisitions, she told in a declaration. The agent marked how it as well stipulated and further confidential paper to convention how may include turned on some individuals not list in the social proportion. The accountable were liberated on a day while the continuing FBI inquiry in CEO Donald Trump card's capacity campaigning bonds to Moscow for the 2016 poll one day once again dominated the news story, and one day once again grown questions on politics decisions his authority is manufacturing on Russia. Which has the response been? Critics of the Trump card authority were offended. I'm fed up. Wait for the authority to defend our nation and our elections, Representative Eliot Engel, the rank Democrat on the Building Overseas Sphere Board, told in a declaration. They've now shown us they win T instrument, so he's period for convention to do more than. Same Trump card authority had a judgment to do if they would pursue the law and fracture downward on such accountable for offensive us democratic state in 2016, Engel told. They chose instead of to let Russia off the crochet yet once again. Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland, the rank Democrat on the Senate Overseas Relations Board, was more than measurable, thanks the authority for charming in convention. But he added, same U.S. should be produced to levy sanctions regime while the law is obviously disrupted, Cardin told. Same authority should not otherwise in these efforts, and I wait a common and routine dialogue on the question. Alex Bordeaux, CEO of the program Cover Russia, Eurasia and Ukraine at the Eurasia team, told rich Russians were concerned on the effect of the paper. Rich Russians are informed to be advocacy hard in Washington, searching legislative consultation concerning their overseas investment and hard to range themselves of the Kremlin, Bordeaux told in a paper up the U.S. listing was published. Which's the backdrop? CAASTA was one of the at first trimming of Main Law How Convention shipped to Trump card, who has rejected to recognize completely Russia's intervention in the 2016 U.S. elections and has thrown question on the unanimity view of U.S. intellect agencies how Moscow did so. The act gone in wide bipartisan supporting, cleaning the shenade by 98-2, although Trump card signed it in law unwillingly. Amongst some things, the law framework the SEO's capacity to shoot sanctions regime on Russia out of lawmakers' adoption. It as well set two deadlines. Following the at first skipped last date on October 1, Registrar of Country Rex Tillerson came by abrupt critique of lawmakers of both of parties, who surveyed why the Trump card authority was nearly a monthly deceased in meet the last date and if the latency reflecting unwillingness of the White's building to future penalty Moscow. In an ungraded email Monday to Representative Ed Royce, the California Republic summons the president of the Building Overseas Sphere Board, Tillerson wrote how he had briefed all tactful posts to achieve out to their army nations and do precise how we designed to sturdily carry out the act, how transactions established to be considerable were sanctionable, and how we would de-engage wherever required in more than particular coverage. Text editors mention, the history has been enhanced to involve the U.S. Exchequer Division listing and Russki response.